Fortunately, we have a number of ways that you can improve your long-term memory. And it is a matter of engaging in association, categorization, mediation, imagery, and mnemonics. And it's much better when you can find ways to combine long-term memory skills so that you can have multiple modes of enhancing your memory. We'll begin first with association. Association is very important in terms of contextualizing data and incoming information. You can really use physical context to be a very important type of association. For example, when you meet someone for the first time, you can think about where you met them. Maybe you met them at a grocery store, or maybe you met them in a classroom, or maybe you met them in a dorm room. And that association can be an important way for you to remember who they are, what they look like, and their name. Categorization is another way that we can enhance our memory because we impose a logical order by grouping information into categories. So, for example, when I was a dancer and I was exposed to new skills or new movement, what I would do is I would lump them into some existing category that I had, which is very much related to the schema that I had developed for different dance movement. So I might categorize something into bar work, or something into floor work, or something into turning, or something into leaping, in order to make sense out of it, to be able to recall it later on. And this is very important for storing information. Also, mediation can help us. Mediation is when we have information that basically seems nonsensical to us, but we need some way to make sense out of it and to actually remember it. Now, you can do this by using word plays. You can create acronyms for different terms or group of terms. You can use structure with a common word, something like a common descriptor from what seems like unrelated items. Mediation can be very effective, especially when you're trying to memorize vocabulary words in a subject that you're unfamiliar with, or when you're trying to learn a foreign language. I know that in the time that I spent trying to learn a little bit of Chinese before I took a trip over to China, that I tried to learn basic things like hello, goodbye, hello being ni hao, and goodbye being zaijian. And I tried to learn how to introduce myself and how to say, I don't understand when people keep speaking in Chinese, wo ting bu dong. And these little phrases that I learned, even though they weren't much, it was quite a struggle for me. I had a tutor, and I also had one of those audio tapes that just helps you learn a little bit of conversational tourist Chinese. And I struggled with memorization. It's when I heard it, I could think, oh yeah, that's what that is. But being able to say it myself, say it correctly, and remember how to say it correctly, I struggled. And mediation was one way that I was able to remember things. I would, in a sentence or in a phrase, I would take like the first letter out of each word and I would create an acronym, or I'd create almost kind of like a story or something along those lines in order to really help me to remember what seemed like nonsense at the time, even though it wasn't, because I just was very unfamiliar with what I was learning. Imagery is a way that we can use our visual memory system to create what we call pictures in mind. It's an excellent way to really engage your senses in your memory. It also becomes something like a mental theater in which you have concrete images that are played out in your mind. It can turn complex data into scenes that are understandable, that are vivid, that are very memorable. There are some ways that you can actually enhance those mental pictures though. One thing you can do is you can blow things out of proportion so it can be the Paul Bunyan tale of your mind. You can animate images so that there's movement involved. You can exaggerate, so the fish story where the fish started out as being only 3 inches long and weighing a pound, all of a sudden now is 20 inches and weighs 30 pounds. You can exaggerate things like numbers of objects. You can also add color to your visualization, and this can be very important because it can add more depth to the pictures that you're seeing. You can include emotion in this, how you feel as you're thinking through that mental image. You can even tap into as many senses as possible, not just visual memory system, but you can try to think about the way something smells. So the olfactory memory system. You can think about the way something the way that it feels, so tactile images. You can try to think about the way something sounds, auditory images. There's a variety of ways that you can engage in imagery. So if you're not someone who's fully engaged with the visual memory system, or that's not something that really assists you in memory in any way, then you can think about other different senses that you have that you can engage in the way that you remember. It doesn't have to just be visual. Mnemonics are ways that we can combine mediation with imagery, and this can really help to enhance your memory system. One thing that I find is that I can remember to this very day, even though I haven't sat in a music class for 13, 14 years, that I can remember notes on a page with music on it, and I can picture face, I can picture Every Good Boy Does Fine, and I can look at them and I can tell time and a variety of other things, all because I remember acronyms like FACE and Every Good Boy Does Fine. And it's not just that I remember the words themselves, but I remember it in relationship to where it is on a page and the sheet of music. So I have a really good example for this, and it deals with the ABCs of a healthy lifestyle. This is sort of what you might deem to be an extreme way to engage in mediation and imagery together. However, it definitely is ingrained in my memory, and some of you could use this as a great study tool. The ABCs of fitness are ABCs of healthy lifestyle are aim for fitness, and then build a healthy base, and then choose sensibly. And in my mind, what I see and what I visualize is I see the letter A on a treadmill for aim for fitness, or I see the letter A on a bicycle biking or walking or any of those things, because I see the A engaged in physical activity to aim for fitness. For the B, for building a healthy base, I imagine the letter B going to a restaurant, sitting down with that menu, and the letter B looking over the menu and thinking, how does this fit with the food guide pyramid? And then I see that letter C, choose sensibly, sitting down next to letter B and asking, hey, are you ordering a low sodium meal? Is that low in saturated fat? So it seems kind of silly, and while if you were to enter my mind while I'm remembering the ABCs of a healthy lifestyle, you might think I'm nuts. No one enters your mind as you're recalling information, and so be as vivid as possible in the way that you recall that information. And this can really assist you in developing effective long-term memory.